Well, good morning, everybody. This is a Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286. Oh, it doesn't look like, hang on a minute. I'll start that again. I was so busy talking to Diego before, I forgot to turn the amplifier on. That should be better. Good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, Patricia and David. And it's not a very nice morning this morning after all that rave about our weekend. Mind you, that's the time to have a good weather break, isn't it, in the weekend? We had a really, really gusty day yesterday, and today we've got rain. So our conditions this morning are 15 degrees. The wind is, well, it was 4 before, but it's looking at the way the irises are moving around, I'd say it's closer to 10 knots at the moment. From the north, actually, so it shouldn't be too cold. The barometer is plunging, 1009.1, rocketing down as the high moves away. Occasional rain is mentioned and 100% cloud cover. So just not a very nice day today, and quite a pressure differential between here and the islands. The closest, I guess, is Falanga. Good morning to Ula and Pele on Lupan. Thank you. 12 to 14. Knots from the east to east-southeast there, 1020, so a big difference, 80% cloud cover. Up there at Vunda, 1017.5, good morning Exocet Strike, 6 to 8 east-southeast, clear sky, so a nice day up there for people to move out. Further up, 7 to 12 knots from the east at Nananu Itake, 1018.1, 20% cloud. And Messatroy have left Uvea for the mainland, New Caledonia. Very light wind going through the pass at the moment. So, yeah, pretty decent conditions. We've swapped around today, and it sounds like, based on our signal to New Caledonia anyway, that radio propagation is reasonably decent again today, which is good. Okay, I'll pick up anybody. I know we've got people interested in the dash to New Zealand, leaving on Thursday. We'll cover that one. And also people are heading west with these lighter conditions to go to New Caledonia. So that will be good. Have a good passage there. A lot happening overseas, particularly in New York with the opening of the United Nations again. But I did want to mention something I read in the paper yesterday. Prime Minister Ardern, it's our New Zealand Prime Minister, is going to announce this week that tariffs on anything related to climate change will be removed coming into New Zealand. Now, this is actually quite interesting news for folk who want to buy things like solar panels and batteries, because theoretically those should be cheaper with this decision to change or remove all tariffs relating to things on climate change. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, you foreign visitors to New Zealand, when you arrive, you will get a piece of paper from Customs. It's a very, very important piece of paper, well worth photocopying, because anything that you buy related to the boat remotely or directly is absent of GST. Now, that's our VAT in some people's language. Remember, in New Zealand, it relates not only to things that you buy, but any work you get done, any services. It's a goods and services tax, which you do not pay when you are in New Zealand. So just copy that, because anything, it all adds up. Just keep a copy in your bag or handbag or whatever when you are shopping for something that could be sort of related to the boat. You do not pay 15%. It's quite a lot, especially on big items. But hopefully those items like batteries and solar panels will be cheaper even for us. You reckon? Oh, we'll wait and see. David pointed out something in the paper yesterday that I had missed. I think we've talked about this before, but it has been shown in a study that if you nap once or twice a week, then you have a 48% chance less likely of having heart disease, cardiovascular problems of one sort or another, much better than if you are a non-napper. Now, I'd have to take this with a grain of salt, really, because the study was only a 3,500 people study. People ranged from 35 to 75, but they were tracked for 5 years. So you only had to take a nap of maybe 20 minutes and it made a big difference. Probably because it dropped your stress levels or just gave you some rest. Quite important. Going to Israel, there is still no government in Israel, but it looks like it's going to be very interesting. The Arab parties are going to force Netanyahu out by banding together with the party, I think the Blue and White Party, that did in fact get 2 more seats than Mr. Netanyahu's Likud party. So despite the fact that they don't like the guy, ex-military guy running the party, they think that he's the best of the worst choice, really. I suppose you could put it that way. So they're very keen to get Mr. Netanyahu retired. Okay, going to Google. Boy, they must make some money. They have just announced a huge investment, 3.3 billion euros of investment in data centers in Europe within the next 2 years. This will support another 3,000 full-time jobs. Finland is going to benefit greatly from it at their data center in Hamina, I think it is. The other centers are in the Netherlands, Ireland, and Belgium. Google are also investing heavily in renewable energy. Offshore project in Belgium, solar energy products in Denmark, and 2 wind energy projects in Sweden and Finland. This is in addition to what they've got in the USA and South America. So, boy, where do they get all their money from? Must be all the advertising. It's certainly not from the frustration of people like us that seem to have to redo their passwords every 5 minutes. Okay, in the United States now, President Modi of India, this is really quite weird, he had a huge meeting in Texas, quite unusual for a foreign leader, but 50,000 Indians gathered in Houston's NRG Stadium. They're called Indian Americans as opposed to American Indians. I suppose that is a reasonable differentiation. They're certainly very different. There was big demonstrations outside because of the Indian activities in Kashmir, but that was a huge rally, and Mr. Trump was there. President Trump was there, and it must have been all in Indian because he had to have translations, or it might be the Indian English.
Yeah,
probably.
that'd be more like it.
Okay, just as well you've got your own form of transport, everybody, because if you had gone to the islands with Thomas Cook is the oldest travel company in the world, 178 years old. But they have now declared bankruptcy and they are no longer trading. They collapsed under about $2.1 billion worth of debt and just could not get any money to refinance and stay afloat. Hundreds of thousands of holidaymakers are stranded around the globe. Actually, they estimate about 600,000 in 16 different countries are well, unless they've got their own money to go home. The British government and the airlines are having a big repatriation process, the biggest since World War II, evidently. 150,000 Brits have to get home. Needless to say, there will be quite a few delays in the process.
Traveling is so much fun.
Yes, isn't traveling fun? The company started in 1841 running rail excursions, but boy, it's developed since then. It runs hotels and resorts, airlines. It's got 4 huge planes which are now sitting on the runway. So not good news for those folk. So maybe there'll be a few thumbing their fingers to get a lift somewhere in the South Pacific. It is an old name, Thomas Cook. Any Wales folk out there, Welsh folk? I'm not sure that I know of any Welsh cruises, but anyway, Wallop, Georgia, in the match last night in Japan, 43-14. Getting back to New York, this is a bit of a joke really, President Trump is missing the opening United Nations session, which is all on climate action. He is hosting a session on religious persecution. Boy, anything to get out of talking about climate change. He really doesn't believe that the drama is as big as it is being made out to be. But I suppose it keeps people away from other things. Everyone is, of course, very interested to know whether he's going to have a meeting with the Iranian president. What's his name? Rahina or whatever. Anyway, Mr. Trump is going to be meeting our Prime Minister Ardern. She is actually speaking at the United Nations climate meeting, and then after that, she is going to have a sit down with Mr. Trump. The press have been banned. It's the only session that day that the press have been banned, so that's sort of interesting. It's not a request from New Zealand. She assured all the press that has come from the United States. But anyway, she is definitely not on President Trump's Christmas card list with some of the comments she has made in the past, although she's been very polite since she became Prime Minister. She certainly didn't get invited to the very swanky banquet that President Trump put on for the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, and his wife last night. Boy, he's been Prime Minister of Australia for
It's a record.
a record. It's over a year now. I think yes, it's over a year. That is a very long time for an Australian Prime Minister. They must be sharpening their knives while he's away, though. Getting back to the United States and New Zealand's relationship, I didn't know this, but the US is New Zealand's biggest market for beef. It's hard to believe, isn't it? All of what you see, pictures from the Midwest and all those healthy cows. Well, they're not really moving out on their pasture because they're usually fed inside. But anyway, they are the biggest market for beef, intellectual property. Didn't know we had that many brains. Telecommunications, computer information systems, and wine. It's $18 billion worth of trade a year. And I think Ms. Ardern is really trying to do something about the tariffs that the United States has put on, particularly with things like aluminium, or aluminum, as you guys would say. All right, let's have a look at streaming now to see what's going on there. Port Vila, the winds have let up. Oh, it's a bit earlier than you thought, isn't it? Clear skies, 21 degrees, 1017. Erie to Port Vila. Who's Erie? Anyway, in the lee of Epi, thank you. 12 knots of winds. That would be east-southeast, I presume. And we've talked about the light winds in Vaya. It'll be get all the light sails up for Mesa Troy. Northeast 3 knots, 50% high layer of cloud, 20 degrees. That's not all that warm, really. 1.5 metre old swell. Port Vila again, 3 knots east-southeast, mostly clear, 1018.5. And Eagle's Wings can't get streaming for some reason. I don't know why that is, because I've got messages here, so that must mean that streaming is on. It looks okay from this end, so hopefully all is well. Okay, is there anybody else with anything to add? Hopefully, I would like to see if we are getting out into Fiji, if someone could give me a signal report there or in Tonga. Tonga people are always very quiet. Hopefully you can hear us. I'll just do a pause. Well, there was nothing much there. Hopefully we are getting out. Folks, there are people coming across from the east, and some of them will not know that we broadcast every morning. Well, Monday to Friday now. Boy, I wish we'd started this Monday to Friday a bit earlier in past years. It's really lovely having the weekend to ourselves again. But if you could just let cruisers know that we are on air at this time of the day, and certainly for those people that are looking at passages, it is sometimes good to get a heads up for what's going on. I think David will be talking about the Fiji to Opua possibility later this week. I know Dash was interested, but anybody else, just if you can drop a line to give him a heads up, because it's gives a better report than just off the cuff when we're on air in the morning. But our email address is ghradio@extra, which is xtra.co.nz, and that still seems to be working, despite the troubles that Spark had with their streaming services over the weekend. All right, I'll pass the microphone and we'll have a look at, hopefully, our weather has just turned nasty again. It's raining, and quite breezy, a good 10 to 12 knots from the north here. Here's David.
All right, thanks, and good morning to you all. And we'll talk again first about our 500 shortwave up there. That axis on that 500 shortwave runs north-south now, along about 170 east, for those of you that are tracking that. And as most of you know by now, I hope anyhow, that upflow occurs east of the upper shortwave axis. And when we look at the synoptic surface chart for today, what do we see? Certainly a complex flow pattern under that area. Multiple depression centers. Frontal bands lie over the eastern Tasman and New Zealand. As Patricia mentioned, we've got one right now sitting right over Gulf Harbor Radio. Now, the weak 500 ridge lies over the cruising route, so it's to the north of this shortwave trough, north of New Zealand. And under this ridge is a weak anticyclone. This is the high that has been giving you quite a bit of wind for the last number of days. Now, by midnight, we find a new player in the system. Things are very slowly moving west to east, and I see a 1032 anticyclone over Melbourne. Now, its strength is helping push the old complex low system along, and in addition, it's ridging toward New Caledonia. So the weather is changing the pattern this week, starting now. Looking forward a few days, this new ridge forms a high center at about 27 south and 170 east. That's 27 and 170. I estimate it will be about a 1027 millibar high, so fairly strong. Those of you that want to travel west, you should have some pretty good winds to do so, right through Monday the 30th, maybe even longer. So a lot of you, from what we've gotten on emails, are wanting to head for Australia, or if you're in Tonga or Fiji, wanting to go to Vanuatu or New Caledonia. So there is time and good winds for that at the moment. So today, here in good old New Zealand, we've got this cold front crossing the country, and well, you know, that extends all the way to Hervey Bay in Australia. Hervey Bay is at roughly 25 south. So it's quite frequent that we see that frontal bands extend over to Australia when they're over New Zealand. And over the cruising routes, we find quite a bit of cloud, a lot of stratus and strato-Q. And of course, along with that, showers come and go, squalls come and go. So a fair amount of activity, even though we are in a high pressure area at that location. Now, up in the tropics, our Solomon's Trough extends to the disturbance that we talked about. That disturbance is now at 7 and 163. That's 7 south, 163 east. The trough then continues on to Tuvalu and on then to Tokelau, Samoa after that, and on to the Southern Cooks. Now, this is a fairly broad system as well as being very long. Cloud from this quite active trough comes very, very close to New Caledonia, the north of New Caledonia, and to the north of Fiji and Tonga. The axis itself hasn't moved a whole lot. The west-east axis pretty much in the same spot. It goes north, it goes south, but in the average, it's about where it has been the last couple of days. On to Tonga itself, where it's still blowing, thanks to the high to the south. They're scattered to broken cloud over the group, and they can bring certainly occasional showers. Otherwise, fairly fine conditions in between all of that. Now, Tonga Met retains the marine wind warning for the group. East to southeast winds, they say 15 to 20, rising 25 knots at times. Seas estimated to be 3 meters in open water. That's pretty rough for moving about the island. I personally am seeing southeast 15 to 20, favoring the 20 knot range. So my wind forecast is a little bit less than Tonga Met, but there you go. Take a pick. That I think will be shifting that'll become easterlies a little bit later today. And I think lighter air tomorrow. I differ a little bit with Tonga Met on that one as well. So I think lighter air tomorrow in the 15 knot range. Again, mostly easterlies. Barometric pressure early this morning for Vavau. Those of you that are in that area, most of you seem to be around there now. The pressure was 1022.7, 1022.7. And the temperatures have been dropping at night. The Tongatapu got down to 16. So pretty close to what we're getting. Of course, our nighttime temps are a little lower than that, but still 16, pretty chilly when you're used to nice hot weather. Over to Fiji Met now. They have retained the strong wind warning for all Fiji waters. And again, giving thanks to the strong high to the south for all of that. They're forecasting southeast winds 20 to 25, gusting 30 for the various passes, Batui Ra, that sort of thing. The outlook is the same for tomorrow. I am seeing mostly easterlies, about 20 knots today out in open water. And tomorrow, I'm seeing east-southeast in the 15 knot range. So again, I'm looking at a little bit less wind than the Met Service. But I have to give you what Met Service has to say. Radar shows scattered showers for the Koro Sea over to Suva and Sorry, that area right there. Very common to see those showers with those trade winds coming in, hitting the bills and whatnot, causing this activity. There's a few returns coming in the Nandi area, while the northern side of Vanua Levu, there's a bit more active there. I see quite a bit of return activity there. Vanuatu, shifting island groups, shows scattered to broken cloud on imagery, plenty of fine areas in between. However, I think enough cloud is present to give you some brief showers, and this includes, again, the key areas of Bougainville, Port Vila, and Lenikai. Now, this new air mass is bringing cool temps for nighttime periods, just like Tonga. 16C in the south, 16C, chilly. Winds remain fresh. Expect southeast 25 to 30 for the central and the northern areas, and 20 to 25 for the south. Seas running 2.5 to 3 meters in the open waters, and again, that's going to make for very lively intra-island passages. And for Vanuatu, it certainly can get lively. Now, my take on all these winds, I think, is a little less wind than what I just gave you. For today, I think east-southeast in the 20 knot range for central and northern areas, and about 15 knot easterlies for the south. Tomorrow, I see southeasterlies for much of the chain, all in the 15 knot range. And for New Caledonia, imagery shows a fair bit of stratoQ for the southern lagoon and also the loyalties. By lunch, I would expect east to east-southeast about 10 to 15, and a pretty good chance of showers for the loyalties. Not too bad tomorrow, southeasterlies around 10 knots, rising to 15 in the afternoon after lunch. Sometime the wind will rise just a little bit. The winds should stay fairly light to moderate right through Friday, so not bad for New Caledonia at all. And I'll give you the actuals for this morning. These are monitoring stations. Some are airport stations, others are just monitoring areas. But the Outer Reef, northeast 6, Ile de Pan southeast 7, big change in wind direction there. Noumea, northwest 6. And the barometer, by the way, 1021.2. And for Lifu, over in the Loyalties, east 13 knots, and the barometer there 1020.1. And that's it from me. We were going to talk about the passage to New Zealand. I'm not suggesting anything at all. It's just we got an email from someone who is thinking about going later this week, I think. They're being attracted by this big high that's sitting there, and it is possible to have a passage to New Zealand, from what I can see. Toward the Sunday time frame, we will have a frontal band that's going to be over New Zealand, and that's going to cause the winds north of that band all the way up to 30 south, maybe 28 south, to be northwesterlies, and therefore the actual ridge axis is a little bit north of that. So I can see that that high is starting to move off. New high is going to be building up. And then looking at, jumping a few days, say by Tuesday of next week, quite a bit of southerly quadrant winds, actually maybe even southwest winds from New Zealand up to 30 south. So that'll put it on the nose. West of there, like in the Norfolk Island area, it looks like we're starting to get a small depression forming right there. So may not be a passage at all. The first part of it could be quite nice, but the last part may not be so great. But that all can change. And I haven't looked at it that thoroughly because this is just a general inquiry as to what I saw. So, but what we are seeing, though, are a lot of people wanting to get south sooner than what we saw last year. So we chuckle at this sometimes because it's almost I don't want to say a herd mentality, but the minute you get a handful of boats doing something, then the word gets out to the outer fringes of the herd, and then all of a sudden everybody is starting to panic. I'm missing something. This is going to be great. We're missing it. All I can say is that you won't miss anything. There's always passages, no matter how attractive one may look. There'll be another one. Always has been. So with that, here's the chief.
All right, thank you for that. And don't forget, if you do email in, please put your boat name in the subject line. And actually, if you also, to be helpful, put your boat name and your leaving and where you're going. That would make it even easier. But when you do tell us what you are looking at and why you think it's good or whatever, make sure you include your ETA date, because your arrival time in and around New Zealand is really important. That's going to be the roughest part or the most sensitive part of the trip, so you really do need to make sure that you have a careful look at that one.
And I won't respond unless they give any.
Well, David just said he won't respond unless you give an ETA. So there you are. Your boats are all so different that it is quite important. Okay, is there any questions, comments, or anything else that I know a lot of you are heading off today, so you'll be busy. But anything from anybody, please call now. If there's any relays, that now would be a good time. I will be running the nets today on the Hamnet, which is I looked up to the top, but it hasn't had its battery redone. But I will be on the Hamnet at 2100 UTC, which is 9 o'clock New Zealand time. And by the way, folks, talking about time, we do not, at this stage anyway, change our starting time. We stick with UTC. GST, Zulu time, whatever you want to call it. Usually that's the case with radios. Certainly it is with ham sessions, but this one as well. Until we get some feedback that the propagation is not as good as it could be, and then we will make some changes as the sun goes down. All right. David just said make sure GMT is not confused with GST. Well, we don't charge you 15% for GMT, so there you are. Okay, folks, have a good day, and we'll vacate the frequency. It is all yours.
That's what she said.
Did I say G? Oh, God.